So again, thank you so much for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Judith Delaney. I'm part of the board of directors of Powering Space, and I'm your host today. Before we get started with this event, I want to give you some housekeeping rules that we are going to follow today, hopefully. First of all, today's event is being recorded. We will share this link with you after the event is complete, and then you're obviously also welcome to revisit the content and to share the content and maybe share what you learned as well. We also invite comments and questions. There's this the little chat box where you can post your questions. We will collect them. And if we have the time, depending on how loud the discussion is or the talk is, we will ask them at the end of this event. If not, we will collect them and we will forward them to Caleigh and to Victoria and to Heather to answer them afterwards, and then publish the answers for you on the website so you can revisit them. So please know your questions will not be unanswered. We're making sure that we're getting all the information to you that you need. And lastly, and this is probably the most important housekeeping rule of today, we are discussing a difficult and a sensitive topic, which means we need you to be even more respectful than usual. We will not tolerate any kind of abuse or harassment, obviously, and no bullying. If we see behavior that is just not okay, you will be kicked. We will be very strict with this because we know that some people in the audience might be survivors themselves, and we will not subject them to any of this behavior. This brings me to one more important thing, which is a trigger warning. We are discussing harassment. We are discussing abuse. We are discussing topics that can really trigger anything, any kind of trauma. I think you know yourself. So I would like everyone to just take a minute and think about their mental health, basically, to see if they're okay with this, listening to what we're discussing today, just to make sure this is a healthy and a safe environment for us today. Before I introduce you to our speakers, I would like to give you a little reason why we're doing this event today. Last year, we've heard of a lot of cases of abuse and harassment, some really on the big industry level involving NASA, Blue Origin, or SpaceX, or some really private cases, smaller cases of individuals coming forward and really bravely sharing their story to make sure it gets heard and to bring about change. This prompted a really important discussion with us at Powering Space. We're just building up this organization, and we wanted to basically discuss what is our responsibility to the community, what is our part we can play. And as you know, Powering Space is about communication, it's about outreach, and we want to communicate all the issues of the space sector, also the uncomfortable ones. And we want to be able to maybe use our platform, to bring this communication forward or to make sure it's long lasting. And this is why we decided to have the elephant in the room and to address this topic with you. So let me introduce you finally to our speakers. Here today are the co-founders of Astro Advocates Allies. That's a group for everyone basically in the space industry who's looking to collaborate on efforts to fight sexual harassment and other forms of bullying all across the industry. With us is Caleigh. Caleigh MacPherson is a certified program manager in the defense industry. She has a background in mechanical engineering. She's also earned numerous awards for volunteer work in the STEM outreach, as well as multiple Robert H. Goddard Awards for her work on the NASA magnetospheric multi-scale satellite mission. That's a long word not to stumble over. We also have with us Victoria. Victoria Varone is a space scientist and a social media specialist from New York City. She has worked with various space organizations over the years, and she has undergone astronaut-style training as part of a citizen science program. Unfortunately, the third founding member, Heather Morrison, can't join us today, but I'd like to send her greetings, and I'd like to thank her for her work in making space a safe space, because she's really passionate about it too. So hi, Caleigh. Hi, Victoria. Thank you for joining us today, and I think let me jump right in. The first question I do have for you is how and why you actually started Advocates and Allies. Was there like a specific incident that prompted you to start this, or was it personal experience? How did it go about?
So it was a mixture of both. All of us individually had been trying to raise awareness of harassment in the space community for the last few years. But there were a couple high profile incidents that finally got the attention of the space community within the United States. And people finally started to recognize that it's been an ongoing problem. So by whatever stroke of fate, the three of us found each other. We created a group, and it's been going from there.
That's fantastic. When did you start this group?
Last spring, I believe.
Spring. And from what I know, you started originally with a private group on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So I had actually started a private group, and it really just very quickly expanded into the larger group that we have now. And that's where I kind of got in touch with Caleigh and Heather, and we kind of just banded together to, increase the effort.
All right. And I mean, I had joined the group. That's how I found you, through an article that was published as well in Florida Today that addressed a lot of the issues you just briefly mentioned. And it just seemed like a lot of people found your group, although you weren't actively advertising, which is maybe a sign also for, how necessary it is. How did people find you? Was it just like how are people approaching you basically to join this group and to work with you?
Entirely word of mouth, really.
Okay, all right, that's interesting.
Yeah, it started with just friends of friends, people relaying the information along to other people, and then we were talking to one of our reporter journalist friends. And he's the one who wrote the Florida Today article, where we finally felt it was okay to kind of publish the fact that we exist and start expanding a bit. But as always, first and foremost, we keep our members safe. So it is a private group. People do have to request permission to join, and they do have to agree to a set of guidelines and rules, trigger warnings, and not to share personal information, things like that outside of the group. But yeah, it's slowly expanded. We're close to 100 people within the group right now, and we've got about another 100 on top of that.
Okay, wow. I mean, for everyone who doesn't know the group, this is not just somewhere where you can go to talk to people, but Heather, Victoria, and Caleigh have actively supported survivors of abuse and harassment. And I was just wondering if you've noticed which issues arise more often. What is I mean, I know there's a lot of bad things happening in this industry. We all know this, but is there something where this is standout, this is reoccurring nearly everywhere, or this is something we just literally hear on a daily basis? Or is it just broad spectrum of all kinds of messed up stories, unfortunately?
The one that's probably recurring the most is workplace incidents, or online bullying, levels of inappropriate messages, pictures, inappropriate gestures, things like that. But at this point, we have seen everything, unfortunately. So we've seen all types of incidents across the spectrum.
Yeah, that's sad to hear, but that's why we're here, because I don't know if everyone attending today actually knows how bad it is, because often we don't see it, we in our own little bubbles, and we don't realize it's going on. But if you look a little bit closer, it's just really, yeah, it's just really, really everywhere. So as I said just now, you are supporting and helping survivors, and you're also giving advice if people are coming out and say, hey, this is happening, what can I do? So the question is, what can they do? What would they need to do, maybe to prepare if they want to stand up to an abuser, or if they, if they just before they even stand up to the person that's doing that to them? What advice would you give, or what have you seen as being most effective?
So firstly, most important, if it's possible, documentation of all incidents is very important, right? And that comes in a certain time, because sometimes abusers know not to leave, a paper trail. So there might not be any, but where possible, it's always important to document and at least to tell one person so that they're aware of the incident that's happening, right? We've had a lot of incidences where people go to HR and nothing actually comes of it because a lot of people don't realize HR is there mostly to protect the company instead of the employees and the individuals. So to start with, documentation is the most important where it's possible. Second most important is just telling somebody so that at least one person knows what's going on.
Does it make sense maybe to, I don't know, do some sort of timeline, or like, if, I mean, I'm just thinking about if I would now say, okay, something's happened to me. I want to do something. Maybe HR isn't helping me. Maybe I don't feel safe going to HR because that abuser is part of HR. I mean, we don't forget this can happen. And I know I'm going to seek help externally.
Having a timeline of events is good. Of course, if that is part of your documentation, that's great. Some people, we've also had a lot of people come to us who they don't have documentation, they don't have evidence, but sometimes they just want somebody to listen. They want somebody to hear their story, but they want to stay private. So, we try to be there for everyone, even if that's all they want. If they just want to tell their story and then kind of take a back seat. It depends. Everybody's different. Everybody has different needs, different requests for something like this. So we try to provide as much support as we can for every situation.
Right. Do you have a lot of like ongoing cases right now?
We have a
Not
few.
a lot, but a few, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's always at least one going on. Okay.
Just because we talk about what should a survivor do, I just imagine, a lot of the times when people do stand up, or when people do go public or speak their mind, that very quickly can get into a situation where we have like a public trial. Instead of this being dealt with properly, we can see it really, people lashing out on social media, people just thinking they can have an opinion because of one sentence they read. So I think my question is, number one, is there anything you think you can do to protect yourself from it? And even more so, do you think you can actually use social media for your advantage in this regard?
I think social media is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So you have the opportunity to reach a broad audience incredibly quickly. But, as we've seen in the current political climate, there's a lot of misinformation on social media. And people don't always believe what they read or do the research behind it. So we use it sparingly with what we need. But it is a good way to draw attention of some organizations and different companies and things like that to get their attention to, at the very least, start the conversation.
All right. Regarding the conversation, we've seen a lot that when organizations then actually do react, that they make statements. They obviously also publish them publicly. It's something we did as Powering Space. We published a statement last year because we felt it was really necessary. And if I'm correct now, so please let me know if I'm wrong, but you have actively worked on getting organizations to implement code of ethics and behavioral guidelines. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So we've worked with a bunch of smaller orgs right now who have published their own code of ethics, code of guidelines, statements similar to yours. But then, we actively work on things all the way to the big organizations like NASA. So it's a small victory, but NASA has implemented their code of conduct across every single NASA media center right now.
That's incredible.
Previously, it was just Kennedy Space Center, but it has been rolled out to every single one so that they're all under the same umbrella right now. So it's a lot of work, but small changes are happening.
For anyone who doesn't know this in the audience, because I know there's a lot of people from Europe joining, and I know that it was new for me when I first heard about it, but there is all across the US a known problem about really bad cases of abuse and sexual harassment in the NASA Kennedy Space Center press. area, if I say that correctly, and it has been a really big issue. And this is I think what Caleigh has just been referring to as well, that they've really now pushed that there's some sort of document that holds people responsible, and you managed to get that implemented.
Somewhat, yep. So as Judith was saying, there has been a historical issue with harassment incidents with the media pools at NASA. Kennedy Space Center is the biggest one, but it has happened at other sites. The issue here is, and I think a lot of people will resonate with this, is that media is not an employee of NASA or Kennedy Space Center, so they do not have to abide by the guidelines that are there for NASA employees. And there's a continuing issue with freelance journalists and reporters, because if they're working for themselves, they don't have an organization that keeps them in check necessarily. So even if an incident happens, there's not necessarily always a boss or an org that you can report it to, or an HR system or anything. So we're trying to find ways around that and work with NASA on making some sort of a concrete process to reduce these incidents.
I mean, let me just say here, first of all, congratulations for achieving this. I mean, considering that your organization, started in spring last year, and not even a year later, you got NASA to implement a code of ethics, a code of conduct that might potentially really help hundreds of, unfortunately, mostly female-read journalists. That is just incredible. And that actually, yeah, is an achievement, I think, that we can really build on. I mean, if you can, if you can see that you can start to make a small difference at NASA, then there really is no excuse to, not make a difference anywhere else. That does already bring me to another question, though. Code of conduct, ethics, nice, really nice, but not the solution to everything. In your opinion, what are necessary steps that need to be taken to actually have lasting change in the space sector? And is there maybe something that everyone in the audience could do, to make sure that space is a little bit safer for everyone involved?
It's a great question. Honestly, I would say that's something that's still kind of a work in progress, right? The big surprise about this issue is that for most of us, at least, you don't expect this type of behavior from people who are interested in this subject matter, right? This is like high level, complex scientific questions and theories. So the fact that it is such a big problem in this industry is a surprise to begin with. And so the solutions, we don't have perfect solutions yet. To start with, it's, the easiest thing you can do is to listen, to be there for somebody who is telling you, this person is harassing me or bullying me. But, going forward, there's a lot of work to be done, right? Because what has happened a lot in the last few years, especially, is these incidents end up coming from people with a lot of power and influence in the industry, right? Big names, big social media influencers. They know, that's the thing a lot of people think is very silly, but that's what happens. People who have large audiences, large numbers of followers, and sometimes they abuse that power when somebody calls them out for something that they don't like, or somebody, says you did something wrong to me, and they don't really want to hear it. So going forward, these are all the kinds of things that we're kind of always talking about and trying to figure out solutions for, because there is no perfect solution yet, but it's something that we would like to work on as a group.
And the biggest thing we like to say, similar to other industries, is if you see something, say something. Quite a lot of the people in our group have confidence issues, and it's all stemmed from that. And the majority of the time with these incidents, they simply don't have the confidence to speak up about it. So we've seen cases of, if even one person listens, it does make a difference. And we've seen that go on to those people then, submit reports about their harassers and have active discussions about how to move forward.
I think I actually want to say something about this too. In a way, I think maybe the word is accountability in general, allowing accountability, or, needing accountability for everyone, no matter what rank, no matter what status, because often, and at least is my opinion, I'm wondering if you share this, we're not always talking about really the worst case scenario cases. We're talking about everyday sexism as well, that again, specifically female-led people are facing. And it starts with, and I don't need to name names to know what I mean, with big private space companies, CEOs posting sexist tweets, and then women saying, hey, this is sexist, this is not okay. Do the women at your workspace feel safe? And then fans of that person shutting people down at being overly sensitive. This is something that's just an everyday occurrence. And I just speak now from my experience, because I'm pretty sure that you, Caleigh and Victoria, have also experienced this, because I'd say every woman every day experiences this, that it already makes a difference then also if you call this out, especially this is now for every man in the audience, basically. It even makes a difference if a man is saying it, because then it unfortunately shouldn't be, but unfortunately it seems to still have more impact, because women are often then seen as overly sensitive, which they're not. Correct. But it's just a structural issue.
Right. There's the lifelong issue of people believe men over women. And that's not something that we can change in the short term, because that's an issue with humanity. But in terms of the companies, we encourage everyone to post a statement if they're willing, that, renouncing harassment, that they will do what is necessary to support their employees and create a safe and welcoming environment, including a way for them to report issues. Because as we've seen with some of the big articles that have come out against the big space companies, Blue Origin, SpaceX, etc., they do not have concrete processes to report harassment. And a lot of times, at least in one of those companies' cases, when their employees are reporting, it's not anonymous.
Yeah. That actually brings me to the questions. We already have 2 questions in the Q&A that I'd like to address. One I think is a really good one. It's, could you please share some best practices to ensure investigations are done in a fair manner? At which stage do organizations have to transfer the reports to a formal appropriate authority, for example, for criminal investigation? Yes, that's to you.
Right. I mean, Caleigh might know a little bit more about the reporting stuff, but of course, like we said before, documenting everything is important where possible. There are, obviously, if there's a paper trail or even a digital paper trail, that stuff is kind of easy. You keep copies of it. You can take screenshots. It can be harder when things happen in person all the time. And we know that everybody doesn't have the ability to, like, let's say, record their interactions, right? There are some laws about recording things. People have got to look online to find out which states have one-party consent laws or filming things, right? There are a lot of regulations around that kind of stuff. But of course, where it's possible, documenting everything is the most important first step in trying to get a solution to a specific issue.
And to follow up on the second half of the question, at what stage do organizations have to transfer their reports? Technically, I do not believe they have to, unfortunately. However, we would suggest transferring any report of an investigation that has a criminal matter almost immediately to the appropriate authorities, as a lot of these things do take time, and we've seen in some instances that the harassers are still in contact with the victims while these are happening. So time is of the essence.
Thank you, Deepika, for that question. I hope that helped you, that answer. Charlie wants to know, Charlie Bilsland, who is part of Powering Space. Hi, Charlie. What do you see as some of the structural issues with harassment and abuse in the space sector?
So as I mentioned previously a little bit, one of the underlying issues for any industry is simply the lack of a reporting capability and HR processes in companies. We've seen that in big companies. We've seen that, in 5-person companies. That is the biggest issue that we have seen. I know it's a 2-part issue. There's one is how to stop the harassment from happening, but then there's how to stop it from continuing. And that's the answer to how to stop it continuing, is that companies need to have solid processes in place. In terms of structural issues, this is similar to every industry. It's not radically different. I think just the big thing is that people expect the space industry to be this, amazing and inspiring and wonderful place because we're trying to, broaden humanity going into space. And then you pop the bubble and realize the exact same issues are happening as, the rest of the working industry.
Yeah, it's unfortunately space is not safe from that. It's not excluded from that. And I think when we first talked, Caleigh, I actually said that that incidents that happened last year had burst my bubble because I was actually lucky enough to not come across it in the space industry, and I had changed into that industry from a different one where it was quite a big issue as well. But that's why I'm actually quite happy that you are there to burst bubbles and to do raise awareness, because it's just so important. Tanya Masson-Swan wanted to see this statement that Powering Space drafted. I don't know if you already saw it, but Torsten just posted it in the chat for everyone. You can read the statement there, and I hope that helps. Then we have another question, and I'm very sorry if I'm butchering your name. Aine O'Brien, I know this is an Irish name, so I hope I'm not doing a bad job, is asking, is there a scope for some sort of best practice baseline policy that organizations could be funded to create that industry/government/academia could adopt for reporting and accountability? It feels like reporting procedures are terrible across the board, which is correct. They are terrible. Do you have any best practices that you could share with us, or that you have that way you say, like, this is some kind of way, yeah, that reporting could be made easier, that could help whoever wants to or you really want to go forward after this and implement a structure to actually, get that going?
I mean, a lot of the stuff that we said, so far, a lot of the reporting, it's either there needs to be an option for people to be anonymous, and as far as going forward, I would imagine an online system for reporting that would allow the user to be anonymous or not if they want. An online system might make things easier, but that also brings up the issue of how to track these incidents, how to verify them. So there are a lot of things that need to go into a good reporting system, and like we said, there really aren't any great ones out there yet, but hopefully there will be soon.
And we do try and, as part of our little organization, we do try and start to create some of these policies or examples of them. Keep in mind, we're 3 people right now trying to save the world. But we are starting to expand. We do have things like monthly Zooms where we have topics, one of which was how to report a incident. So that we are trying to, that is the plan for the future, to start creating examples that people can use.
Perfect. I just realized I misunderstood something. Thank you for pointing this out. The statement that was actually asked for was not Powering Space. The statement was asked for was the statement you basically drafted with NASA, the Code of Conduct and Ethics. If you could share that, if there's something for the that you got NASA to implement at the press science, could you share that statement or that?
So we did not create their code of conduct, but we had conversations with high up officials about rolling it out to all sites and to update it to specifically include the word sexual harassment, because it was very gray before that.
Okay, and we can obviously find that on the NASA websites? Or
I believe so.
Okay.
It was more the result of a lot of incidents we were dealing with happening at once that stemmed from NASA sites. A bunch of people sent reports in about what they had experienced at those sites, and so NASA kind of put out that code of conduct after that.
Okay, well, thank you for answering this, and I hope this has helped. Keep the answers going, because you're seeing actually they fit perfectly in the middle of the discussion. So please, if you have any not answers, if you have any questions, do pop them in. So we did mention it a little bit earlier that you obviously have been incredibly supportive of people approaching you and asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone is in the audience, but if there is, and also because we're going to show this video afterwards, we're going to record it and we're going to share it later. I think it's very important for us to address how someone can reach out to you if they need help. If they feel like, okay, I don't know who to turn to, how can they reach you? What can they do? What can they expect when they reach out to you?
So our main form of contact right now is our Facebook group. If someone is not on Facebook, we are going to soon implement other ways to contact us. You know, email. I mean, we're going to create emails for everybody in case they just want to email. And we're also going to put up, I think, a Google form so that somebody can submit something. If you're on Facebook, the group is fine. The link is actually on our website. It's astroadvocates.com. It's kind of just a basic website right now, but it's got the link right there on the front page if you need to find the Facebook group. And if not, we will we'll supply everybody with emails or another way to get in touch if anybody who watches this does end up wanting to get in touch.
And I would say if there is an urgent incident, contact Jules or Powering Space, and they can put you in touch with us if it's something that's immediately necessary.
Yes, there is. Thorsten had posted a statement that we did at Powering Space, where we also included an email address called safe space at Powering Space, I believe. I'm the one, by the way, answering that email address. Hi, everybody. This is an email address that is just being seen by me, because we do know, again, that a lot of abuse and harassment happens to female red people. They might not be comfortable to report to a man because it has been done to them by a man. So this is an email that is just being read by me. Only a woman will see this. So I do hope that would make you feel safe to report. And we would then, you know, help you get in touch with Astro Advocates and Allies. You just pointed out correctly that it's only the three of you who have been doing all of this. And if I am correct, you're doing this on a voluntary basis. You're not getting paid for this. You're doing this because you generally want to make a difference, which I think is amazing, which actually brings me to a very important question. How can others support you in making sure you can do this? Because a lot of the time, especially when we do something volunteer, there is no budget. There's the lack of time. Are you thinking of having volunteers to help you with organizations, or helping you build anything? Is there something you need to help do your work so we can all, you know, make a difference a little bit better?
We are starting to slowly expand,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to work out the details with that, because as I'm sure everybody can expect, you know, there's going to be a very strong vetting process for anybody we bring on board. First and foremost, the safety of our current members is paramount. So that will happen, and we are slowly starting to expand. But yeah, like Jules said, you know, we are three people all with full-time jobs and real lives. We have no budget. This is all on our free time. But the biggest thing, you know, that anybody can help with right now is to create a statement that their company stands by their employees and renounces harassment, and something very similar to the one that the folks here at Powering Space put out, because that does make a big difference, and that will reduce numbers of harassment in the future.
That actually makes me want to mention something else, just because I've now said it happens mostly to female red people several times. It does not only, we all know this, it does not only happen to female red people. It does not only happen that men, you know, are the aggressors there. It also happens the other way around. And it also happens, you know, unfortunately with racism in this industry. It also happens with bullying between work colleagues of the same gender. And I think this is something where people can turn to you as well. Am I getting that right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We're, you know,
it started out with with some of the more male and female sexual harassment claims. And very quickly, we started getting a lot of reports of other types of harassment and intimidation. So, we try to support everybody in every case because they all kind of come down to the same thing, harassment, bullying, intimidation. And it doesn't really matter the sex or gender of whoever's doing it. It's just, there have been a lot of people actually driven out of the space industry because of their being on the receiving end of behavior like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you already mentioned that you are trying to grow, or that you are not trying, that you are actively actually growing Astro Advocates and Allies. And what are there any specific companies, because you mentioned you already talked to NASA, where you're feeling like you'd really like to get in there and make change, or are you already working on or talking to other bigger companies, as I said, as pointed out in the Florida Today article, and on several women who have been coming forward and have been talking, especially about the bigger companies. Are you talking to anyone there? Are you already trying to contact them? And are you maybe want to use this platform to call out to people that could help get you in contact with them?
So we are actively working with some smaller companies.
Okay.
But in terms of, essentially you're referencing the Blue Origin and SpaceX articles. Yeah. We are in contact with the group that wrote the articles, both of them. Mm-hmm. That one is a little more difficult because those have moved into a legal stage of things. Mm-hmm. But we have been actively in contact with them for months, mm-hmm. and aware. There's the issue that those two companies are so massive that it will take, a mountain to move them. Mm-hmm. But we're trying. We're trying to do what we can.
All right.
And there are some other large organizations in the industry that are also experiencing this problem, right? I don't want to name any names right now, but you would be surprised and disappointed to learn which really big, well-known organizations are experiencing this problem. Yeah. So, really anybody from any company, if they want to come to us for support, they can. We might be limited on what we can do, at least just for now, but we will still listen and we will try to take a look at whatever somebody brings us.
And the same goes for the individual level as well. So I know Heather recently, who couldn't make it today, literally sat in as a third-party advocate on a court case recently.
Oh wow! Okay,
we'll do full spectrum.
Well, again, I'm just going to say this again, although we're not at the end. But thank you so much, because this does make a difference if you don't feel like you're alone, and maybe sometimes it also just makes a difference when you have someone, who is a little bit of a bystander, so it doesn't have a super close emotional bond. Some get super outraged, but is able to deal with this with you, with a little bit of a healthy distance in a way, I guess is what I want to say. We have another question from Ryan Laird, who's also a Powering Space director, because they're all in the audience today. Thank you so much, guys, for being there. He wants to know, is there a big difference in workplace culture and between old space and new space with regards to harassment? Are space startups, which are typically more agile, able to make changes more quickly, or is the issue with larger, more traditional space companies? So yeah, is there a difference between old space and new space, and how on these issues, how they're being addressed? Have you been able to notice anything in this regard?
From what I've noticed, there's definitely a little bit of a difference, right? Yeah. The newer companies, like you said, absolutely, they're able to adapt more quickly. Most of them are made up of, younger generations who are interested in doing things, right, and if possible, trying to do things right the first time. So yeah, we've definitely noticed a difference. A lot of the older space organizations and companies, you hear more of the, classic old time, well, that's just how they think, that's just how they are. But, if somebody is being made uncomfortable at work in a place like that, then that's not okay anyway. It doesn't matter what year it's from, what decade it's from. There's definitely a little bit of a disconnect, but we have been impressed by a lot of the things that the newer companies are doing. Right. Startups, smaller companies. So hopefully, that will expand throughout the whole industry.
Oh, that's good to hear. That looks like, you know, something is happening, which is nice. Torsten, who's also our tech support today, can't ask questions because he is tech support, but he just wrote me also with a question asking, how is Europe dealing with the issue? What is going on in Europe to mitigate the topic? And now obviously you are all in the US. So I'm wondering, do you have an insight on what's going on in Europe, or are you the cases you're dealing with more US based at the moment?
We have dealt with a couple of European cases. The laws are incredibly different from the US to Europe. It's definitely case by case. Europe is so segmented that each country seems to have very different laws on top of that. So we have had a couple European cases, but it's a little more difficult on our end, but we can still coach the person on the steps they need to do and give them the support that they need.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We have another question. Thank you, by the way, everyone who's just really, you know, participating in this conversation. This is really great. Daniel Porras, and I hope again pronounced the name correctly, asks, how can companies and organizations encourage partners and other institutions they engage with regularly to adopt better practices? That's a good question. How can they?
It's a good question.
Does it come back? Yeah.
You know, like the first thing, like we keep saying, they can just simply talk to somebody in a position of power to do something about it, to adopt a policy, to put it online. Some places will hold kind of like seminars or meetings where they discuss these topics so everybody can kind of get on the same page. Really, it all just starts with communication, right? It starts with talking to somebody about it, asking somebody about it, and seeing what can be done, you know, in any group, seeing what can be done as a whole.
All right, I want to say one more thing actually about this, and I know I'm not the guest, but this is just something that I think we should all do, because we mentioned accountability earlier. Obviously, hold others accountable, but hold yourself accountable too, because I think it's in human nature to make mistakes, and it's also in human nature that we are born with a certain set of, or that we are being raised with a certain set of behaviors that at some stage, let's just say, might be outdated. What's okay 20 years ago, 25 years ago is not okay today. And I can absolutely speak for myself when I said is that I had some behavior, for example, when it comes to a female colleague, that was not okay, because I just felt threatened by her. I'm just gonna be quite honest. And I had behavior that I'm really not proud of, and just, you know, apologize, try to make it better and try to be better now. But I think a lot of the times we don't even notice maybe when some behavior might be, you know, difficult for someone else, when some behavior might be, we think it's funny, it might be sexist. We think it's just a joke, someone might really feel bullied by it. So I think maybe educating yourself is a good shout. And basically now my question is, because we know there's so many amazing books on all kinds of matters, do you maybe know any, or can actually recommend any kind of reading about you know, unlearning certain behaviors that we maybe have? Yeah, or any kind of sources where we can inform ourselves what is actually okay, and maybe check if we are okay, if we are behaving properly.
I mean, I don't have any particular recommendations for those, but if anybody else who's in the group does, like, feel free to drop it in the chat. I think it's really great that you said that, though, because there was actually a post that I shared to our group recently that said exactly that. You know, it said we've all had bad behavior. We've all probably hurt somebody with words or actions, even unintentionally, and taking accountability for it is the best way to move forward.
Yeah.
So that was really great that you brought that up. Thank
you. I just for some reason, I mean, last year, the year before, we obviously really also dealt with the Black Lives Matters movement. And there was a lot of literature that was really so good, that really helped me educate myself further, realizing that I was part of the problem, even though I didn't want to. And for some reason, it just seems like with the Me Too movement, that never came. There never was like some literature or anything where you were like, where you could literally see, am I part of the problem? Unintentionally, not because I want to be a bad person, a bad colleague, a bad boss or whatnot, but just because I'm in my bubble and don't know that this behavior is hurting someone. So again, actually drop it in the chat here if any one of you has some great recommendations. If not, Google, find out if there's some great things that you can do. And maybe this is something we can also then share afterwards with the social media. We are 10 minutes, the end of the time. So I'm just the end of, not end of the time, end of this event. So I just want to ask the audience again, if you have questions, pop them in the Q&A now, then we'll get to them, because so far there's just been amazing questions, and I'm kind of hoping there are some more. I'll see if I have something else on my list, because obviously I did write something down. Yeah, do you maybe want to have a little call to action for the audience, or maybe a call to how to support you, or what you need at the moment for support? Because maybe you, I don't know, desperately looking for a social media manager, so for volunteers. So shout out what you need to help make a change.
I mean, we do have a quick call to action that we've put up on our website. And if people would like to use that, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to share. I do want to reiterate, so people know, we are not professionals. We are simply human beings whose friends and families have been harassed and assaulted and been wronged, and we are trying to make an active change. And we're not any different from any of the attendees on this list. So if anybody has any ideas, we'd be more than happy to listen to anything. We're here to help everyone.
That's great, thank you. I've just popped your website address into the chat as well. So so did you, Victoria. So great. So you know what that means. You all have to visit it, and you all have to see how you can support and make a difference. I want to thank you, Caleigh and Victoria, for being with us today, and for sharing your expertise and insights, and for donating basically your time, one of the most valuable things you can donate to really make a change. I really hope that a lot of people in the audience feel inspired by what you do, because I certainly do. I think it's amazing what you're doing, and that you're really trying to make a lasting impact. I really hope that everyone is trying to do the same. Before we close this event today, I want to let you know that we're actually following up this event with another one we're for now calling the Elephant in the Room 2.0. This is going to be sometime beginning the first 2 weeks of March. We're fixing that date in the next week, where we will actually, as speakers and guests, have survivors of abuse and harassment with us. This is not an event to basically share spectacles or whatnot, or it's what we're trying to achieve with this is that we want to actually hear from survivors what they need to hear and what action they need to see from a company to feel safe again, to feel like they don't have to leave the space sector, that they can stay. Because a lot of the statements you also mentioned last year that with various events were posted were really lackluster. They just didn't say anything. They just really felt like the survivor was being brushed off. And we just want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they literally didn't know what else to do, because they were lucky enough to never have that happen in the organization. So it's important for us, again, as a communication and outreach organization, to help people do the right communication and do the right outreach. And we have some fantastic people who have already agreed to speak to us and share with us what they would have needed. So everyone can really learn from their experience that we wish they didn't have to make, but that they're trying to do something good with now, which I think is, again, just incredible. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I also really want to thank my Powering Space colleagues, Thorsten Kriening, Remco Zimmermann, Charlie Bislin, and Ryan Laird in the audience today as well, for really supporting this event and the fight against abuse and harassment in the space sector. And I also want to thank them that when we had the talk about this last year, that was considering, again, I'm a woman in the space sector, I experienced, just like you, sexism every day, that they really listened and that they really questioned the status quo of their organizations of how they're behaving as well. And that really was appreciated. So thank you guys for that. Yeah, and last but not least, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really glad to see so many people in the audience, that we had so many great questions, and that you all respected the housekeeping. That I think is really important, that it was really respectful. And if you have any questions still that you're now thinking of afterwards, you can really just, you know, find us on Twitter, it's Powering Space, LinkedIn, it's Powering Space. You can find Astro Advocates and Allies on Facebook, as we said, and on the website. If you don't know how to reach out to Caleigh or Victoria or Heather, again, we're happy to help you. And I hope you can leave this event with knowing a bit more, you know, being more aware of what is happening, and hopefully sharing this video once we post it with other colleagues that could not attend, so they can educate themselves a little bit further and maybe, you know, burst their bubble a little bit, because we really need to do this if we want to make a change. And again, thank you, goodbye, and I hope to see you at our next event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.